And welcome back into a night in for the Red and White. I'm Steve Baker, the voice of the Red Hawks, and over throughout the show, you'll have an opportunity to bid on some great items, raise money for scholarships for our Miami student athletes, and a lot more. And one of the things you're going to learn a lot about tonight is Title IX, as it's the 50th anniversary of Title IX, providing equality in sports for women across the board. And I am joined by two of the women in the department that have been through a lot of what it's been Title IX from the beginning up until now. And we're joined by the Senior Women's Administrator and Associate Athletic Director, Jennie Gilbert, and our head coach of Miami Women's Volleyball, Carolyn Condit. And Coach, let's start with you. 38th year coming up?
Maybe.
Well, okay, something like that.
I think. I don't know.
It's been a while that you've been head coach, and you have certainly seen a lot of the changes that we're talking about that Title IX instituted here during that long and storied career. What changes in the treatment and appreciation for women's athletics have you observed?
Well, there's been a lot, but it's just fun to talk about a couple, even if we have time today. Women sharing with equality the court, field, pool space that we use with others, with the men. And I know at Miami, I felt it start really taking shape in the early to mid 90s. And what we have right now is a lot of equity with the men's and women's basketball team and volleyball. And the three of us work great together. And it's just very rewarding not to have to worry about that and to work with such great people. And I just mentioned something, one or two others, team gear, the quality of it, what's given out, the protective gear that's available. All of that is so much better for women and looks better on them. And it's just a long time coming to see them get what they deserve and they love. They get excited to get that gear. And the last thing I would mention is the doctors and the medical staff that treat women and men. In early years in the 80s, I worried about if the women will be treated the same, and I think along with me, other women in the country sometimes would want to go to those medical appointments to make sure that the young women were listened to and that they really treated them as athletes, where that might have been my very early years, and since then, the quality of our medical staff and Dr. Daly and his team of doctors, our trainers, it's just been amazing. Amazing. So I think we've come a long, I know we've come a long way with that, and without them, we would not be the teams we are today at any school, and especially at Miami, I can speak to.
Yeah, absolutely. Jennie, you played for Coach Condit in the 80s, and Miami had, at that time, one female athletic administrator. You're now the Associate AD and Senior Women's Administrator. What does that mean to you?
You know, coming to play for Coach Condit was a dream here at Miami. Playing Division I as a woman was fantastic. Coach gave me the chance to try. I wasn't gifted athletically, but I wanted to win. I wanted to challenge myself, and she gave me that opportunity every day. That wasn't the case for every female athlete that wanted to try. I was very fortunate here. And that opportunity to learn from Coach Condit about responsibility, accountability, all of those skill sets that the men had been learning for years with athletics as the vessel or the venue, I got a chance to do here back in the 80s. The hard part was there were very few women in that place of decision making. So the fact that Karen Womack was on the senior staff was fantastic. And the mentorship of those two women here at Miami actually led me to a career in athletics that I think is fantastic and is amazing. I'm actually a product of Miami athletics, and I want to make sure that I can be a small part of providing those same opportunities to our women coaches and student athletes.
Yeah. One of the things that I talk to our student athletes about that we've interviewed for the show and other student athletes is this generation of athletes has had the opportunity to have role models at the collegiate and the professional level. You guys didn't have those when you were playing, and I think that's a big difference for these athletes coming up.
It really is. My first role model that I can remember were my college coaches. I mean, honestly, I was just so excited to play with women because I grew up in a neighborhood with all boys, and it was just an amazing awakening for me as I went into college. It was really a lot of fun. Where my college coach was one of the finest basketball players in the country for women, but they hardly had seasons back then, so she didn't get to play till her senior year. So it was sad times, but yeah, it was fun.
Absolutely, similar situation. The only ones that played ball in my neighborhood were the guys. And so when you finally get to high school and college and there are other women who are just as competitive and fierce as you are, it was amazing. It's an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, in 2016, you were honored by the Greater Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Women's Sports Association with its Lifetime Service Award for your continued support and service to girls and women in athletics. Take us through that moment when you found out you'd be recognized, and with that honor and what it means to you.
Yeah, I was very surprised and humbled by that, and I remember getting the call maybe 10 days ahead of time to do some planning with them. That organization in the Greater Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Women's Group was amazing and led by Jane Meyer, who was the fantastic volleyball and basketball athlete at Mount St. Joe, and became the volleyball coach at Northern Kentucky, and then the head AD there. Talk about a strong woman. There are other strong women with her that formed this association, and they made it possible for girls and women and men who coach women and girls to get recognized all the time. Every year they'd bring state championship teams in, but for me to be a part of that, wow, I just was like wowed. I really was wowed, and I can't thank those women enough, because I didn't have the time to give to that I should have, but what they pulled together was amazing, and to know that those strong women who were also great athletes in times where they had to fight for everything, for them to be on the voting committee and vote me in, I just didn't even know what to say. I had a hard time preparing that speech, and it was a lot of fun with my family there and some of my college coaches and my former teammates, and it was a moment I'll never forget, and I'll always be really super grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely, and they are a great organization, honoring athletes all throughout the tri-state. And I know we've honored several Miami athletes down there before.
Jennie's been honored.
Yes, Jennie's been honored down there as well. You came to Miami in 2007 as Associate Athletic Director and Senior Women's Administrator, Jennie. After coaching and 4 other institutions, how has the role and Title IX evolved for you over those years to now?
That's a crazy question.
Oh, okay.
But when I left Miami and took my first coaching job, I soon realized that not every administrator cared about the competitive success of the Olympic sports or of the women's sports teams. That was a really hard lesson to learn, that when some of the administrators didn't even know my name and I'm on staff, it was really hard to go ask someone for more resources to be competitively relevant when they didn't even know who you were or were invested in your program. That got to be extremely frustrating from an emotional standpoint. And then especially becoming a young mother and not having any kind of support network or flexibility from some of those administrations. Fast forward to now, I get an opportunity to be the administrator I wish I had had as a young coach, hoping that I can mentor women and men to be amazing coaches, fantastic leaders on their teams, but actually investing in them personally to let them know they matter, that what they bring to the programs, wherever they are in their programs, they make a difference and they add value to Miami athletics.
Excellent. Coach, you began playing at Mount St. Joe during the enactment of Title IX. Then you began your coaching career shortly thereafter when Title IX was just starting to be enforced. Still coaching at Miami University here now in the 50th anniversary of Title IX. Tell us the changes from your playing days up through now in the 70s to the 80s and present day. Obviously, it's changed a lot, and it's gotten better. There's still a lot to do, but it has changed a lot.
It really has, and you know, it's been amazing to be a part of and fun to watch evolve, and sometimes tedious, and you know, pushing for things with a velvet hammer, I suppose, until you get someone's attention to help you make the changes. But I remember in the 70s, women were only paid to teach, and if they coached, that's great, but you're probably not going to get a raise or a new salary for coaching, and you just, that's what it was. That you had no choice. So you got to the 80s, and women start earning more coaching positions, but the salaries were often insufficient or insulting. I don't know what the better word is. And you know, basically men hired men, and then we would watch how men would start getting into women's sports and coach, especially basketball, and then softball, and then volleyball became one of those team sports that men were really attracted to. So I guess the good news is the salaries start going up, and there was such a thing as bonuses, but men were giving to men and not always hiring the women. So I don't mean to sound negative, but it was truly reality. So through the 90s, I think women start entering coaching a little more, or you thought they were entering it, they were always there waiting, but then they started to be hired more. And I attribute that to the fact that younger athletic directors became part of the system, and they either had daughter, wife, mother, someone that valued athletics greatly, and they appreciated that through them, and maybe they just were good men that loved athletics no matter who played it or who they were administrating to. But that was when we start seeing women paid more for what they're doing and getting more of an adequate salary. So it was a really, really good start. And I admire those ADs that were willing to be different and to open their arms to that and say, why aren't women coaching women? I have really strong, good role models here that are women for girls and women, and we're not paying attention to that, so let's do it. So I was very excited because I could witness that time, and oftentimes I had to ask for my salary at different stages, regardless of what school I was at. And I'm sure women across the country, did the same thing. So that's one of those. And awards and recognitions were also things that were not very strong early on. AIW was in charge of women's sports, and they did not want to give up that to NCAA, but NCAA had more power and money, so they overtook it. And when they overtook that with the money and more power, it made sense that women got recognized more because men were doing it. And so it was kind of neat to see the all-conference, all-region, all-state, even in high school, and then through the college level. Beyond that, I would say meals and nourishment. Anytime I see my athletes from the 80s and mid-90s, I want to just say, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how hungry and starving you were. And I see we have nourishment rooms and nutrition rooms now, and it's full of chocolate milk and fruit and all kinds of great things. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm so sorry about that. And we didn't really have the budget for it, and we didn't know any different. And yet these young women never complained, and they were pretty amazing, and got some championships in there beyond that, which I don't know how that happened without real food. But so that was something that I really wish we could have changed, and we couldn't at that time. And probably the other thing that I would mention, for lack of time here, transportation. I was one of the smaller ones, so I'm back in the station wagon back, and probably lucky because I could sleep back there. But there was a lot of just driving of personal cars and rental cars and renting station wagons. And then, from there, you start seeing vans evolve in the 80s and a little bit more. Some are in buses, depends on what school you're at. And air travel begins and becomes more prevalent in the new millennium. And so it started moving forward. It just makes me laugh. Vans are now considered dangerous. You can't drive them more than 2 hours, and only the head coach can drive them. And that's good because the trainer shouldn't drive because of all they do. But things eventually are becoming more normalized. But I know that I'm sitting in a good spot with my job here at Miami and the good people and men and women I work for. I'm sure that there's many in the country that are still hoping for more. Maybe they want more buses for their program. They want to be able to fly out of region once. And so I think that the struggle still goes on, and hopefully it's going to keep moving forward. I believe it will, because I think more people are more open to things, and they don't want to keep women in a position that's down and out.
Right, yeah, very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I do have one final question. We've gone through a lot of changes. Everything has changed so much. Jennie, from an administration side, I know you deal with the NCAA, you deal with the MAC. What's the challenges still immediate for Title IX and getting that equality?
Yeah, I think keeping women in athletics is becoming a big challenge. The women, for the most part, like being the nurturers and starting a family. And especially at the Division I level, where it's 24/7, 364, we get Christmas off. It's hard to raise a family and still stay committed to that intercollegiate model. But we're also losing women officials. We're seeing, thankfully, more women athletic directors, but we're losing more women administrators and coaches and officials because they're having a hard time finding the balance. We have administrative and departments that are not creative or flexible in trying to find solutions. And I think that's our next big hurdle for women in athletics.
Very good. Thank you both so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.